I am Clara Whitmore. I am 33 now, but when I was 17, my own mother told me I didn't belong in this family anymore. It was my father's 50th birthday. I had spent months secretly preparing a tribute slideshow, a private dinner, even tracking down one of his childhood friends to surprise him. But when I arrived at our house that night, dress in hand, heart full of hope, my mother stood at the door and said, "We all agreed. You are not welcome here." Her voice was calm, measured. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The look in her eyes said it all. I had been dismissed, forgotten, and what hurt the most, my father stood behind her, silent. He didn't say a word. That night changed me, but not in the way they expected. You see, there was something my family didn't know, something I had only discovered a week earlier while going through old family files in the attic. A secret that explained everything. My mother's need for control, her quiet war against me. Her desire to push me out of every room, every memory, every family photograph. 15 years have passed since that night. And now, for the first time since I was thrown out of their lives, my parents are coming to visit. They think it will be a simple reunion, but they are not ready for the truth I am about to show them. Before I take you through this story, let me know where you're watching from. And if this kind of raw, emotional truth speaks to you, please like and subscribe. What you're about to hear might sound like fiction, but every word of it happened. Growing up in Savannah, Georgia, I always felt like the extra piece in a perfectly assembled puzzle. My mother, Evelyn, ran the house like a polished PR campaign, always elegant, always in control, always performing. My father, Richard, was a history professor at the university, a quiet man who preferred reading journals to raising his voice. And then there was my older sister, Genevieve. Jenny for short, the golden girl. Beautiful, accomplished, effortlessly adored. I was different. Not rebellious, just invisible. While Jenny won dance trophies and hosted Sweet 16 parties with live jazz bands, I spent my afternoons at the public library, lost in biographies and family history archives. I didn't resent her. I just didn't understand why our mother seemed to see only one daughter. My mother always claimed she was fair to both of us, but it was the kind of fairness that punished me for existing outside her design. Every choice I made that didn't mirror Jenny's path was seen as defiance. My decision to apply to out-of-state colleges? Selfish. My refusal to wear pastel at family photos? Attention-seeking. Even the way I spoke, slower, more deliberate, was mocked as dramatic. But it wasn't until I turned 17 that things truly unraveled. I found an old file box in the attic while looking for childhood photos for Dad's birthday slideshow. Inside, tucked between tax documents and faded greeting cards, was a hospital form with my name. Only, it wasn't the name I had always known. There, in black ink, was a birth certificate I had never seen. Different hospital, different last name. And the mother listed? Not Evelyn, not the woman who had raised me. From that moment on, nothing in our home felt real anymore. That was the week before Dad's party, the night I was erased from my own family. It was the day of my father's 65th birthday. The sunlit garden at our family home had been transformed into a pristine celebration space. White linen tables, string lights, a jazz trio quietly tuning their instruments near the gazebo. It was picture perfect, just the way Evelyn liked it. I had been oddly quiet all morning, not because I wasn't excited to celebrate Dad, but because I knew something no one else did. I had planned a surprise, a slideshow of his life, childhood photos, old lecture footage, letters from former students, and one final image, an unexpected truth he never saw coming. But as I pulled up to the house with the USB drive in my hand, I noticed something strange. Guests were already arriving, cousins, neighbors, even Aunt Josie from North Carolina, and yet no one looked at me, not in the way they usually did. There was something off. As I stepped onto the porch, my sister met me at the door. Her lips were tight, her expression unreadable. "Mom wants to speak with you, alone." She led me through the side hallway, into the kitchen where Evelyn stood, dressed in her favorite navy dress, pearls at her neck, her back ramrod straight. "You're not staying," she said, not even turning around. I blinked. "Excuse me?" She finally turned to face me. Her tone was calm, too calm. "This is a delicate occasion. I won't have it ruined by your outbursts or dramatics. You've been asking too many questions lately." "What are you talking about?" "You've been digging," she said, folding her arms. That hospital form? It meant nothing. You were adopted. We gave you a life, a name, and you repay that with this? I felt like the air had been punched out of me. So it's true, I whispered. She didn't deny it. Richard doesn't know, and he doesn't need to. Not today. Not ever. The room spun. You kept this from me. Kept this from him? I asked. Her voice dropped. He's a good man, a fragile one, and you. She stepped closer, voice sharp. You will not destroy this day for him, or for me. We all agreed. I looked at her, eyes narrowing. We? The family, she said coolly. Your sister, your aunt, everyone who actually cares about Richard. We all agreed you're not welcome here today. My hands clenched around the USB drive in my pocket. You're lying to him, to everyone. She leaned in. You will leave, quietly, or I'll tell everyone you've had a breakdown. You know how emotional you've been lately. The audacity of it made me laugh, a hollow sound. You know what? I said, taking a step back. Good to know. I turned, walked out the kitchen, through the hallway, and past the perfectly curated tables. I passed smiling guests who had no idea what was unfolding behind the scenes. I walked to the AV tent where the event coordinator stood adjusting the slideshow monitor. I need to make a quick change, I said. I plugged in the USB and swapped the video file. Then I left. By morning, I had 26 missed calls and 4 voicemails. From my sister, my aunt, and finally, from my father. His voice shook in the recording. I saw the video, he said. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't anyone tell me? I played it twice. Then I cried, not because I had ruined a party, but because for the first time in my life, my father finally saw me. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, texts from my sister. What the hell did you do, Amelia? From Aunt Grace. Call your father. He's devastated. From Evelyn. You've destroyed everything, but the only message that mattered was my father's. I saw the video, his voice said through the voicemail. Soft, shaken. You're my daughter. Always will be. But I need to understand. Please, come see me. I drove to his condo near the university, the same place he used to grade papers and escape Evelyn's passive-aggressive silence. The curtains were open, his old leather chair pulled close to the window. When he opened the door, he looked smaller, like the weight of an entire lifetime had finally caught up with him overnight. Hi, Dad, I whispered. Come in. We sat without speaking for a moment. The air was thick with decades of love and lies. He finally broke the silence. When did you find out? I told him everything. About the medical form, the lack of baby photos, the visits to county records, the missing birth certificate, and finally, Evelyn's confirmation the day before his party. She knew all along, I said. She made everyone keep it from me, even you. His hands trembled in his lap. I didn't know, he said, voice cracking. God, Amelia. I didn't know. I believed him, because I saw it on his face, the grief of a man who is blindsided, who had loved a child his whole life, and just found out she wasn't biologically his. She said I was adopted, that you weren't told, that she didn't want me. His head dropped. I remember the day she brought you home, he said. She told me it was sudden, that a distant cousin had passed unexpectedly and left a child behind. She said it would be temporary at first, that we were helping family. He looked up at me, eyes red. But you were never temporary to me. The ache in my chest burst. All those years, I said, she made me feel like an outsider, and I thought it was in my head. She never accepted you, he said quietly, and I never understood why. You were smart, kind, stronger than either of us. We sat there in silence again, letting the storm between us pass through. Finally, he reached for a folder on the coffee table. Inside were printed screenshots, emails between Evelyn and my aunt, old, dated years back. She didn't delete everything, he said. Your aunt kept these, forwarded them to me this morning. I scanned them. Lines like, she's too curious. She'll ruin everything. If she ever finds out, he'll leave me. She doesn't belong in this family. My throat closed. She never wanted me, I whispered. She feared you, Dad said. Because you made me proud. He stood and walked to the shelf, pulled out a photo, me at my 5th grade science fair, beaming, holding up a trophy. He was crouched beside me, hand on my shoulder. Evelyn stood stiffly to the side. I've always known something was broken between you two, he said, but I never thought she'd lie like this. Keep this from me, from you. What now? I asked. I already packed a bag, he said. I stared at him. I can't go back to her, he continued. Not after this. Not after what she did to you. You're my daughter, Amelia. Maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters. Tears filled my eyes. I just wanted to know where I came from. He smiled gently. You came from love. From the moment I first held you, you were mine. I don't care what her papers say. You are my child. He stood slowly and opened his arms. I didn't hesitate. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, I felt safe. I felt home. Later that day, Evelyn tried to call again. This time, I picked up. I see you've gotten your way, she said coldly. No, I said calmly. I just stopped letting you have yours. You humiliated this family. No, I said again. You did that. I just told the truth. There was a pause, then the quietest sound, her breath catching, like she didn't expect me to fight back. I'm not angry anymore, I said. I'm done being hurt by you. But I won't protect your lies. You're making a mistake, she hissed. I already made one, I replied. I trusted you. And with that, I hung up. It was over. But in that ending, something new was beginning. 3 weeks after everything came crashing down, I stood at gate B14 at the airport, a single suitcase in one hand and my father's weathered passport in the other. Italy, a place that had always been a dream for him. And now, for me, it was something more. It wasn't about tourism anymore. It was about finding truth in places where the past had been buried, both his and mine. Ready? He asked as we boarded. I don't even know what we're walking into, I said. He gave me that soft, knowing smile. Neither do I, but we're walking into it together. The flight was long, but peaceful. No party planning drama, no pointed remarks or cold silences, just quiet conversations, shared memories, and long stretches of comforting silence. We landed in Rome and took a small train north, winding through the green hills of Umbria to a quiet village outside Perugia, the kind of place where time moved slower, where the air smelled of rosemary and old stone. The bed and breakfast was run by a widow named Lucia, who greeted us like long-lost family. I remember your grandfather, she said, eyes twinkling. He used to run barefoot through the vineyard, wild boy, always talking about America. She led us to a room overlooking a grove of olive trees, simple, warm, honest, nothing like the polished perfection Evelyn had always insisted on. That night over dinner, Dad pulled out an old envelope. Inside were black and white photos, his grandfather as a boy, his great-uncle, and one labeled only, Clara, 1961. That's your birth mother, he said quietly. I looked at the photo for a long time. She had my eyes. I thought you didn't know anything about her, I said. I didn't. Not until recently, he replied. I hired someone after you found out, a local researcher. He found records here in the town hall. He slid over a small folder. Inside were hospital records, a baptism certificate, and a single page written in looping script, her letter to me, never delivered, dated 2 weeks after I was born. I read it in silence, my heart pounding. My dearest Amelia, I wish I could hold you just once. But I know you'll be loved more fully by someone stronger than me. I chose this path because I couldn't give you the life you deserve, but I will always pray for you. Always. My hands trembled. She hadn't abandoned me. She had loved me. In the only way she knew how. Tears welled in my father's eyes. She left you with a wish, not rejection. We sat in silence for a long time. The only sounds were the wind rustling the vines outside and the clink of Lucia's wine glasses in the kitchen. The next morning, Lucia arranged a visit to the small chapel where Clara's family was buried. We placed flowers at her grave, yellow lilies. I don't know if I forgive her, I whispered. You don't have to yet, Dad said. Some things take a lifetime. He crouched beside me, placing his hand gently on the soil. But I hope someday, he added, you can thank her for bringing you into this world and for giving me a daughter. That evening, Lucia surprised us with a small dinner in the courtyard. Her family joined us. Homemade pasta, local wine, laughter under string lights swaying in the warm breeze. For the first time, I wasn't watching from the edge. I wasn't excluded. I wasn't hiding. I was surrounded by people who saw me, who welcomed me, who didn't care about where I came from, only about who I was now. "You look peaceful," Dad said as we walked back to our room under the stars. "I feel free," I replied, like I finally exhaled. He smiled, and for a moment, I realized something. I had lost the illusion of a perfect family, but gained something far more precious: clarity. And maybe, finally, closure. We returned home to a city that felt colder than when we left, not because of the weather, but because of the silence that greeted us. No calls from Evelyn, no messages from Liam, just the hum of the refrigerator and the low buzz of traffic outside. Dad dropped his suitcase at the door of his temporary apartment and turned to me. "I'm proud of you, Amelia. Not for the trip? No, for walking away from people who expected you to shrink to stay loved." That night, I sat at my window, looking out at the quiet skyline, thinking about everything that had been torn down in the past few months. What did family even mean now? Because the people I used to believe were my roots had turned out to be weeds, choking me slowly while smiling for the photos. And yet, here I was, not broken, but blooming. A week later, Liam texted me, "Can we talk?" No apologies, no explanations, just that. I stared at the screen, unsure if I even wanted to answer. But curiosity, hope, maybe, won. We met at a coffee shop near campus. He looked older than I remembered, or maybe just tired. His confident posture was gone, replaced by something closer to humility. "I didn't know how bad it had gotten," he said, fiddling with his cup. "You helped her lie to me," I replied. "I did," he admitted, "but not out of cruelty, out of habit." I raised an eyebrow. "She trained us, Amelia, to defer, to keep secrets, to protect the version of the family she curated, and I let her do it because it was easier than questioning everything." Silence stretched between us. "I was jealous too," he added, looking up, "of you and Dad, of how easy you two were with each other." "It wasn't easy," I said softly. "It was earned, through honesty." He nodded. "I want that now, with you, with Dad, but I know I don't get to ask for it without proving I've changed." I sipped my coffee, watching him. "I don't trust you yet, Liam," I said truthfully. "But maybe we can start over, if you're willing to do the work." He exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath. "I am." We met again a week later. Then the next. Small talks about nothing important. But under those small talks, something began to rebuild. And then one Sunday morning, Dad invited me to brunch. When I arrived, I was surprised to see Evelyn there too, sitting stiffly in the dining room. She looked older, like someone who hadn't slept in months. "I asked her to come," Dad said. Evelyn stood, her face unreadable. "I won't take much of your time," she said. "I've started therapy. Real therapy, not just something to tick off a box." I said nothing. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Amelia. I don't even know if I deserve to be forgiven. But I wanted to tell you that I was wrong. About everything." There was a pause. Then she added, "Especially about you." That hit harder than I expected. "I spent your whole life trying to mold you into someone who wouldn't threaten me." She continued, "And when you became someone stronger than I could ever be, I punished you for it." Still, I didn't respond. "But you're my daughter, and if you ever feel like letting me back in, even just a little, I'll be here, at your pace, on your terms." She turned to leave, but I stopped her. "Did you love me?" She blinked. "Yes, but not well." I nodded slowly. "That, at least, is true." She left without another word. But that moment stayed. It lingered in the air like the scent of burned sugar, bitter and sweet at once. A few weeks later, we held a quiet dinner. Just me, Dad, Liam, and Rebecca. There were no decorations, no speeches, no pretense of perfection. Just food, laughter, and the understanding that we were trying to become something new. Trying to build a family, not on bloodlines, but on truth. The past still echoed in corners of my mind. The birthday party I was banned from, the secrets, the betrayals. But they didn't define me. I had walked away from the table I was never truly welcome at and built my own, one with fewer seats, yes. But every person at that table saw me, respected me, loved me honestly, and that was enough. They say time heals all wounds. That's a lie. Time doesn't heal. It just gives you the distance to see the wound clearly, to decide whether it will define you or teach you. And for me, it taught. It's been nearly a year since I was told I wasn't welcome at my father's birthday. Since I canceled the trip I'd spent 2 years building. Since I watched a version of my family unravel in front of me like threads pulled from a fabric too thin to hold. But strangely, what followed wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Dad and I did eventually take a trip, not to Italy, not to the village I had dreamed of, but to a quiet cabin up north, by a frozen lake surrounded by towering pines and silence thick enough to hear our thoughts echo. We fished, we hiked, we sat on the porch and drank coffee while watching the sky shift through shades of winter. We didn't talk about Evelyn much, or Liam, or the birthday. Instead, we talked about books, about regrets, about the dreams he'd once had as a young man and the ones I was still shaping. There was a moment, one afternoon, when we sat beside the fire and he reached over, placing a photo in my hand. It was of me at age 6, covered in dirt and freckles, holding a worm in one hand and beaming like I'd discovered treasure. "You always went after what you wanted," he said, even when no one understood why. I looked at the photo for a long time. "I just wanted to be seen," I whispered. "I know," he replied. "I'm sorry it took me too long to see the full picture. There's a grief that comes with realizing some people you love will never fully know you, will never choose understanding over control. But there's also power in accepting that truth and loving yourself anyway." When we returned from the trip, I started a journal, not to document pain, but to reclaim my story. Because for so long, my narrative had been shaped by others, by my mother's silent manipulations, by my brother's need for approval, by my own fear of being too much or not enough, but not anymore. In those pages, I wrote about who I was becoming. Not just a daughter, not just the fixer of everyone else's messes, but a woman with a spine and a soft heart. Someone who could build boundaries and still open doors. Just not for everyone. Liam and I, we're better, not close, not like some fairy tale sibling bond, but real, honest. He checks in, he listens, and sometimes he admits he doesn't have all the answers, which, for Liam, is growth. As for Evelyn, therapy is changing her. Slowly. She's apologized, not just once, but in ways that aren't performative, in quiet moments, in staying silent when she would have once filled the space with excuses. We meet for coffee every other month. I always choose the table near the window. She always brings something, a book she thinks I'd like, a photo from my childhood, a small attempt to reach backward and forward at the same time. I haven't forgiven her fully, and maybe I never will. But I no longer carry the weight of that anger like armor. I've set it down, and in its place, I carry discernment, the ability to see people as they are, not who I wish they'd be. That clarity is peace. It's freedom. This story didn't end the way I thought it would. There was no grand reunion, no family photo with matching smiles and a caption that reads, "Healing." But there was something better. There was truth, there was reclamation, there was me, standing in the center of my own life, not asking for a seat at someone else's table, but building my own. And now I open that table to people who meet me with respect, curiosity, and love that doesn't ask me to be less. So, to anyone out there who's been told they're not welcome, who's been cast out of their own family's script, who's been made to feel too loud, too much, too different, let me tell you something. You are not too much. You are not unlovable. You are not the problem. You are simply someone whose light could not be dimmed to make others comfortable. And that is something to be proud of. So light that fire, take that trip, cancel the plans that weren't made for you, and write the story where you are the hero. Because healing doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like standing alone, whole and unbent, and whispering to yourself, I'm still here, and I'm just getting started.